Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
All right. Boom, 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 boom. How's everybody doing out there, man? Today is a special day because we have a special guest on today. But before we go there, here at Find Your Freedom, we always love to help you out. So we have a downloadable package just for you. All right. You could go to www.findyourfreedomrei.com/freedom kit. Once again, findyourfreedomrei.com/freedom kit. Go there, download it. Believe me, it's going to be everything you need to help you find your freedom. Now, this next guest, all right, is a special guy to me, right? I have known this guy for over 20 years. He's a friend of mine. Not that he's just a friend, he's also a mentor of mine. He's built over 4 multimillion-dollar companies from the ground up, sold them, have over, 300 employees, maybe 400, through his lifetime thus far, and he's itching to get right back into the game, right? I'm happy to know him. He also don't consider himself an investor, even though he invests passively and got a few rental properties under partnership. So if you could bring in my guy, Randy Cook. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Len.
Hey, man, great to see you too. Hey, for the listeners, if you could, just give a little background on yourself.
Well, I started off working in the finance area, basically, and worked there for probably about 5 or 6 years. Got disillusioned with it. Felt like I was the donkey chasing the carrot. Never got a bite of the carrot, and kept me hungry. And decided that I wanted to do something on my own. But by the time I did, I already had a family. Had 2 kids, wife, Rome in Philadelphia, was living large. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't have a way to do this. So part of my journey was I went back to school. I became a nurse, not necessarily because I envisioned myself spending the rest of my life nursing, but I loved the flexibility it gave me that I could pay the bills while I was figuring out how I was actually going to achieve what it is that I wanted to ultimately do.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's I think when you think about time and then like allocating a big chunk of time in order to pursue a business pursuit of some kind, not a lot of people think about, oh, okay, I can do this time block and then start my journey with the entrepreneurial. So how did you, I guess, get that started on your end as far as like picking what you actually wanted to do?
Well, ironically, what happened was when I became a nurse, I had this finance background that I did, and I started working in the nursing field, and I would go into different facilities. And as a nurse, the first thing you do every time you go into a facility is you get a report. So a report basically, for the most part is, you're going to have these 5 patients. This guy has this process going on. This guy needs pain medication. This guy needs this. This guy needs that. And that's your expectation. And in nursing school, that's exactly what they tell you is going to happen. When reality hit, when I graduated back in the mid-90s, you would go in and they'd be like, okay, try not to use too many dressings today because the hospital's out of money. Try not to change the bed sheets too many times because the hospital is on a cash basis with the laundry vendor. So we don't know that for a fact we're going to be able to get more sheets in this week.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is crazy, right? So I started looking into it, and I started finding that the reason a lot of hospitals were having difficulty, financial difficulty, was because the process to get their money was so convoluted that it made it very difficult for them. And I just saw an opportunity. I combined, this healthcare experience that I have with this financial experience that I had, and was able to help. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, is finding a niche and filling it.
Awesome. So Randy, listen, you're here. You're saying, look, man, I have a family, I have a wife, right? You said you live in large in rural home in Philly, right? You got the 2 kids, so you got the American dream, boy and girl. So I guess, like, what did you actually do to sit there and say, from a mindset perspective, how did I, how did you start another business with having a wife, kids, nursing?
Well, I have to say one of the things that I personally believe is that, mindset is everything. So, if you don't, I'm a logical person, and I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about my children, and I started thinking, boy, if I don't take the bull by the horns, some guy who probably doesn't even know my name, he just knows my social security number, is going to determine whether my kids get to go to college or not, right? They're going to get to determine, what house I'm going to raise my children in. They're going to determine whether, my kids can go to, an Ivy League school or a, private school or a state college or a community college, or get rid of me altogether and make them, go work on the streets by the time they're 12 years old. And that just always sat wrong with me. And I think that, probably most people that are listening to your program probably have a similar feel, which is what they're looking for. And I think, the logic has always been, we've always taught people, go to college, right? Get a college education. Why do you get a college education? Why? So you can get a good job. And then what happens? Oh, you get a good job, and then you can work for somebody else, and then they can tell you how you're going to live your life. And I just thought that's backwards from what it is that I wanted to do.
So I like how you talked about like mindset is everything, and I know even for myself, I think the hardest part is you have this level of security. So you get this job, it pays you well, and you're comfortable to a degree. So what would you say to somebody who's kind of living in this like comfort zone, but there's so much more out there that they're just not aware of? How do they overcome that?
Well, for me, it was just simple logic, right? We're taught that the risk is going out and doing something on your own. And the reality is the risk is working for somebody else. Because here's what I could tell you, when times are good, everybody does pretty well. But when times are bad, the people that make the decisions are going to make those decisions that are best for themselves. And if you're not the person making that decision, you're one of the person that the decision is being made for. And, that's, to me, all the risk is in that. If you don't have control over your destiny, if you don't have control over your fate, that's way more risky than, than taking a risk and saying, hey, look, even when I was in the row home, I always thought to myself, look, if I go out and I do this and it doesn't work out, I'll go get another job as a nurse. I'll still eat. I'll still find a way, but I'll never be able to lay my head on the pillow at night. I'll never be able to go to my grave and rest if I didn't know that I took the chance.
No, that's awesome, Randy. I love to hear that, especially the part of controlling your destiny. But what I want to get into a little bit is, a lot of people see the success. So a lot of people see, oh man, Randy Cook, he built 4 businesses from scratch and, able to buy, vacation homes and, do all these great things for him and his family. But give us the inside scoop. Let us know what it really was like starting that business.
Absolutely. So, when I first started the business, I had one moment that stood out to me that was sort of the final straw. I guess everybody has that straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. So my straw to break my camel's back was my father had been married 5 times through 5 different women. Only probably the second wife on, the rest of them were younger than me. I had stepmom, they were all younger than I was.
Nothing wrong with that.
That was my direct one. But my grandfather, on the other hand, was a rock. I mean, he, married the same woman, married her before he went away to World War II, was married during World War II, came home, stayed married to her, got a job after World War II, and worked that entire job his entire career. Never changed wives, never changed careers. He was like a rock. And I was like, that's the man that I want to be. And I was sort of following that pathway. And when he was in the hospital, in his final days, I went to visit him, and I looked down at him, and he'd been in the hospital for a month. His hair was grown out. He looked like Einstein. And I was like, and he actually said that to me. He said, I must look like Einstein, don't I? Was like, "Yeah, look." And I said, I said to him, I said, look, now here we are, what advice do you have for me? I mean, you must be so proud. You raised your family, you lived in the same home for 50 years, married to the same woman for 50 years, had the same job with it for 50 years. I said, how do you do it? And he turned to me and he said to me something I'll never forget. He said, I missed out on a lot of opportunities.
Wow.
Don't be afraid to take a chance. And that was it. That was the moment. I was like, okay, I'm never going to be able to rest easy until I achieve or take the risk. I probably could have taken a risk and failed and been okay, but I knew that I was going to do everything that I could to try to control my own destiny at that point. And when you start, let me tell you, you got to be ready, because there's a lot of naysayers out there. Many of them are your best friends and the people closest to you. They're your moms, they're your dads, they're your cousins, they're your wives, husbands, all these people who don't understand, because they've been raised to say, go to college, get your degree, get a good job. I had a good job. I was doing all those things. It wasn't enough for me. And, the people that care about you, even though they think you're crazy, they'll still be there at the end. And all my people were still there at the end. But at the beginning, you can't work so hard. You got to stop and smell the roses, all those types of things. All these people are trying to give you this advice, and it's appreciated. It's coming from a place of love. Sometimes it's coming from a place of jealousy. Sometimes it's coming from different places. But for the most part, it's coming from a place of love. And you have to be ready to deal with that, because it's just not how people are taught to think.
Wow, that's don't be afraid to take a chance. So I think the listeners really gotta listen to that statement. Don't be afraid to take a chance. I relate to that because I worked a corporate job for 18 years, and I was in a position where I finally worked towards a department which people want to retire in. It was like the perfect job. And then they're like, what, you're quitting? You're walking away from your W-2 to pursue being a real estate investor, and people thought I was crazy. But and some people questioned, hey, are you going through like a midlife crisis? Like, is everything okay? And just like you said, I think you're going to go through kind of these comments, and there's a lot of naysayers out there, and they're going to question the decision. But just like you said, don't afraid to take the chance. And I think that chance is really an opportunity for growth and just a lot of new experiences. And I think that's what I've been wanting to pursue. And I love that and what you've shared. And I think that's super important. So I guess sometimes people don't understand the struggle that goes on with the entrepreneurial sort of experience. So maybe walk us through maybe some of the challenges or obstacles you have to overcome as you're beginning that phase, or before you get to the your success of where you've been.
Sure. So my very first challenge was the business started in the basement of that row home. That's where the company started. And man, I knocked on a lot of doors. You get a lot of no's, So, you really need to have that vision present to keep going when people are shutting the door in your face. I mean, so especially in our area, because we were sort of like disruptors. We were telling people that they were doing things wrong, and we had a better way for them to do it. Nobody likes to hear that. No one wants to hear that, we have a better mousetrap than you built yourself, right? So, we went, for months and months and months. I mean, it was basically a slow grind. And then I got a contract with a company called Novacare, which was in the Philadelphia market. They took a shot on me. They gave me a couple of accounts, and we started working on their business plan, and we started developing things. And they had already had a couple other vendors sort of in the same space. And then probably in 90 days or 120 days, they came back to me and they said, gee, you guys are doing so well. We want to give you more. We're like, okay, more. We love more. Like, can you take more? Yeah, we could take more. I said, okay, great. What do you have in mind? They said, we want to give you $500 million. $500 million. Can you do it? Of course. Yeah, we could do it. My mom's there, my brother's there, my cousin's there, absolutely, They're like, okay, great. They're going to give you $500 million. I said, well, great. We want to send our executive team out to meet your crew. They'd never seen our operation. This was all done over the phone. And I'm like, this is going to be great. They're going to walk down to my basement. My wife's going to yell at them for they're stepping on the whites, getting the whites mixed in with the colors, and you know what I mean, or whatever. Like, whatever the contacts are going to be there. Like, what the heck are we going to do here? So we went and we basically in like a few weeks. So I said, "That's great, fantastic. I'm going to be going on vacation, but in a couple of months from now, why don't you come over? It's great." So at that time, we found a building. It was abandoned. We put it together. We carpeted it. We cleaned all by hand because we didn't have any money at the time. I mean, we were doing it all by ourselves. My dad went to Home Depot and bought countertops and made desks out. This is what we had. I took a credit card. We put all our computers on it, our phones on it, everything. They weren't plugged in. They sat on the desk and they looked at. I was going to have a whole family sitting there when they came, and we did all this and we started out, and we were all excited. We're ready for them to come, and they filed bankruptcy and they never showed up.
Wow!
Not only did we get their new business, but everything they owed us, they couldn't pay us.
Insane.
So to come back from that, it takes a little bit of, that's what I say. You have to, if there's entrepreneurs out there, people that want to invest in real estate, the number one thing I tell people is know yourself, know how you're going to behave when things are good, know how you're going to behave when things are bad, have a plan, and don't deviate from the plan, because it's so easy to find that, right? I mean,
let me listen. You're saying you're knocking on doors, right? And you're getting all these no's. Finally, you got some opportunity. And this opportunity, they just didn't go left, but it went all the way left. I guess why you just didn't quit and say, hey, you know what? I'm done. Just going back to nursing. Like what made you say, I'm going to keep going?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is just, like I said, it's the vision. I mean, part of it, to be quite honest with you, is, you don't want to be the laughing stock. You don't want to be the guy that told your wife and your mom and all these other people how you're going to be, the successful mogul, and you're back begging them again, a couple months later. So there's that. But really, the truth is, I planned for problems. I planned for challenges. I knew that, there were going to be these things. So, we were living, we lived hunkered down. I was still nursing. I was still nursing at that time. So I would work all day, on the business. And then on the weekends, I would go work and, go nurse all weekend, 2 12-hour shifts on Saturday and Sunday. And that, we kept the lights on, even though we were in dire straits. And, I think that was probably a big part of it. And we lived to fight another day. And I just started working the phones again until I got another yes. And, that's really the choice that you make in this world, right? Faced with failure, it's a fork in the road. One thing I think that people don't appreciate enough is drift. And, I drift to me is the exact difference of what people say, because their focus sounds like such a cliche, right? You have to focus, right? If you don't focus, you're going to, it's going to fail. When you say that, it sounds like a cliche, but I think people understand drift better. And here's what I mean by drift. If you start out on a journey and you're going to take a path and you have a destination, if you just drift off slightly on that journey to begin with and get off your path, it's not so bad. You could get back on the path. But if you keep going in that wrong direction long enough, you'll be so far from your destination that climb back is so hard. I mean, just imagine you're trying to get to France and you end up in Russia and you have to go over mountains, all this other stuff, right? It's too much work. But if you're consistent and you're accountable, you'll never get that far off the path. So even in the face of failure, even in the face of, things that can go wrong, you just snap yourself back on the path and know that you're headed in the right direction. And the way you measure your progress is, am I getting closer to my destination? If that answer is yes, there's no reason to ever stop.
I mean, I love that drifting analogy. It just brings me back to like me being in high school, want to drive cars and like drifting into mountains. And you're like on the path, and then you're trying to stay on the path, and hopefully you don't hit the rail or the mountain. Right. And but I think that's super powerful, because it's like it's never like a straight shot. Like you always think you have this vision, and you're gonna try to, take all the right actions, and you have the goals, and it doesn't necessarily always go that way. And I think, like you said, like, you just got to be prepared for the challenges and things that are going to come with, part of the journey. So, yeah, I mean, it's super inspirational, just like hearing some of those, just how you've done it. Maybe you can just like walk us through, like, how do you decide when you want to start doing a new one? So like you've been successful with one, and then let's say you start a new venture, because that in itself, when you jump into something different or new, like, how do you even jump into that process, or when do you know it's the right time?
Well, you know what? I think a lot of it is success breeds success. Once you have one success, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You already know what to do. You already know how to do it. And then it's so much easier to see those opportunities when they arise, because, you can look at the people that are going to be involved, you know what it takes, and you can tell if they measure up. The market, whether that market's going to, consistently be available and consistently grow, or if it's something that might not have those opportunities. So you're so much better at looking at those opportunities once you've honed your craft. And I think real estate is probably a great idea for that, right? I mean, if you know a neighborhood, if you walk through all the houses, if you see where the development's happening, if you see all those things, a lot of the guesswork is taken out of it, right? You're the expert. You've become the expert in the field. And, I think as long as you're willing to hone your craft, as long as you're willing to work on it, then you can do that. I mean, if you think about businesses, real estate, anything in general, right? If you give me any business in the world, I'll show you somebody who made a fortune at it, and somebody who failed at it, and somebody who kind of, fell somewhere in the middle. It's really about you and your execution more so than it is that you do. So if real estate is something you love, that's great. Just make sure that that you take the time to build your craft, get around smart people that understand it and know it, educate yourself, and you'll be fine. If you're like one of the people that, is always the person sort of gets like, just 1 inch into it and then says, I'm ready, then, that's someone that's going to be, trouble. And if you're someone who looks at every deal and you get paralysis analysis and you never do anything, you're really not that much better than the guy that only bothered to learn 1 inch of it. So it's really about that. I mean, think about it. You have a guy, you take the ice cream business, you have a guy who's going to corner scooping ice cream. You have a guy who's Ben& Jerry's, and you have a guy who tried it and failed. So, it's the same business. It's still just ice cream. It's just a matter of your vision and how you execute it.
Yeah, that's good, man. I really love that. I really love that success breeds success, right? I think that's awesome. So I guess, for the listeners, just let's dive in just a little bit of just about some of the businesses. Rennie, just give us an idea of some of the businesses that you created, from scratch, and just give us a little background on a few of those businesses.
Sure. So the first business, like I had mentioned, was involved with helping hospitals and their business office, because, the business office in hospitals is very convoluted, and it's a really unique market in that almost everything else that a consumer buys, they pay for themselves, right? You go and you buy a TV, you write a check. They're pretty sure, that that's the TV that so it's pretty easy to do. In the hospital world, you're going and getting the service, but in most instances, it's just third party. It's this insurance company that's going to be paying for the service. So, they have a lot of control over the process of what they'll cover, what they won't cover, where you can go to get those services in a lot of ways. And most people don't understand, their insurance policies. And, it's very hard for hospitals, if they're dealing with a consumer that's not educated, coming to them to get these services, and they can't manage it. And the people themselves don't understand it. They're getting fed a lot of bad information. So we just help them basically by improving the quality of that information that was getting put into that system, and then making sure that we were managing that process. So we became sort of this extended business office for hospitals and physician groups. And that was something that, that provided a lot of value. We were able to provide a lot of value for our clients. We were able to provide a lot of value for our employees. We were able to provide a lot of value for ourselves. And then from there, we grew it into other niches, where we just looked around and we saw, okay, what are these little things that we can do that, sort of the crumbs that fall out of this giant hospital system. So we started identifying, we developed the software around it, we developed other processes around it. We started looking at some of the things that we could do to help patients and how to make their lives better. So helping patients that were indigent get coverage, things of that nature. And we just created these different business lines around these little niches we identified. And, it's funny because, people come to me and they say, well, what kind of business would I start? I say, do what you know, right? Because if you're working somewhere, more than likely, there's something that you're thinking all the time. If you're an entrepreneur anyway, you're thinking, boy, they could do this better if they did this. That's a business, right? Airbnb, what was their whole business model, right? It was just basically, okay, people have these properties that they're sitting on this untapped money, and we're going to open up this, this avenue for them to monetize that. I mean, it's a pretty simple business model if you think about it, but it's a pretty darn good one.
So, you talk a lot about vision, and I think when I talk to friends who have these business ideas, sometimes they have the ideas, but they never put it on paper as far as like taking the right steps to actually like move forward with it. So, what advice would you give somebody who has a vision but maybe is not comfortable with like the action piece, or being comfortable with knowing what are the appropriate steps to lead to building that business?
Get around people that know. I mean, that's the best advice you could give to anybody that wants to learn a business. Most people that have done it, they're more than willing to share that information. They're more than happy to help other people, to get to their destination. And, I've done it for other people. I've helped other people that had ideas that came to me and helped them execute it. I think most successful people, at least that I know, they want to give back. They want to help. They're not, it's not like, oh, okay, I have this secret sauce and now I'm going to hide it the rest of my life. Most people, they want to see other people. When everybody does well, it floats everybody's boat. That's the place you want to be. That's a good thing. So I would say that if somebody has an idea and they're not sure how to go about it, educate yourself, find a mentor, find somebody that'll help you, and execute your plan. Otherwise, you'll be like those people that sit there all the time and have to hear their wife say, "You thought of that idea. Look, it's on TV. That was you. You did that 5 years ago. Are you ever going to put one of these things?"
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. So, two things that I really enjoyed you saying here was, for people who want to start a business, do what you know, start there, right? And then the second thing is, that's part one. The second thing is, get your circle right. Get in the circle of individuals that's going to help you get your mindset right. It's going to push you and give you whatever tools, that you need. Listen, I know that you worked hard, Randy. Personally, we have a personal relationship, and I know, how hard you work. So I guess, what are some of the benefits now that you enjoy, from going through the journey of building these businesses and up into the point that, you are at today?
Yep. Well, I'd say one thing that I'm really pleased about is all the people that came to us, that came and worked for us, who came from meager beginnings, who now are thriving. I can't even count how many people that worked for us that, had children and sent them to college and bought their first home and went on their dream vacations and all the things that happened for them, that you get, it's like kind of seeing like your kid grow up. It's like it's a very proud moment when you get to see those things. I would also say that, from my personal perspective, the thing that I wanted the most was to make sure that, my kids had the opportunities in life, and when they found their passion, that they'd be able to do it. And I think that was the biggest driving force for me, was that, I wanted my children to be able to, to follow their passion wherever that would be. And not many people get that opportunity in life. A lot of people, for as much as we preach here about finding your financial freedom, a lot of people go through their lives caught in a trap, painted in a corner, and waking up every day and not getting to do what it is that they love to do. And that's probably the best gift that you could give to someone is choice.
No, I love that. I think it's that's something like people dream about or talk about and pursue the opportunity for their kids and pursuing passions. And I think there's not enough discussion about that. For me, I always think about, okay, what do I picture my kids doing as far as what their interests are, and just trying to create opportunities for them to kind of discover that on their own. So yeah, I would just say this kind of ties into, I guess, the next question is just, how do you help even others to see that for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that would certainly listen to your podcast has the edge, right? Why else are they listening to a podcast that's that's about finding your financial freedom, right? So something is in them that is making them interested. Something is telling them that there's a better way, right? And what I would encourage those people to do is just, tap into that thought. Why are you here? Why are you listening? Because you suspect there is something better. And the truth is there is. And, part of it is just sort of like reverse engineering all those lessons that you've been taught, that the risk is in taking the chance. The risk is in, working for yourself. The risk is in pursuing your passion. We've all been taught that, safety is in working for, a big company and having them, that somehow that's there's safety in that. And I personally don't believe that. I think people that are probably listening to this podcast suspect that it's not true, but they feel like they've painted themselves into a corner, right? I don't want to walk across the wet paint. And, unfortunately, part of finding freedom is you have to take that first step and have faith that you're going to make it across the floor, even if you have to walk through the wet paint. So I would say that, look at yourself in the mirror, be completely honest with yourself. If you need to lose 10 pounds, don't suck in your gut and say, I look pretty good. Be painfully honest. And if you look at yourself and don't like where you are, change it. Because if you don't, like we talked about that drift, you're just going to keep drifting off to that place, and you're going to end up on that destination that you never wanted to be. And then the climb back is impossible. But, if you start now and you actually focus in on that, it's, trust me, it's very possible. I didn't start my business until I was 35 years old. That's when I started the business. By the time I was 35 years old when I started the business, I was living in a row home in Philadelphia. I had enough money in the bank to pay next month's rent or next month's mortgage payment, which back then was about $650. And, within 5 years, I probably never would have to work again another day in my life.
That's great. That's great, Randy. And I love that, because it's a guy named Jim Rohn. He always says, you're not a tree, you can move, right? And some people believe that they are just a tree and they can't move at times. So, Randy, let's ask you a question. Just, what does find your freedom mean to you?
I think to me personally, what it always meant was that I would have control of my own destiny, that I would determine my family's fate, my children's fate. That's what it meant to me. And then when I finally reached that, it was just such a relief, because the whole time, that, I don't know, maybe people think differently than I, but the whole time I was working for somebody else, the only thing I kept thinking about is, when's the axe going to fall? When is somebody going to wake up one day and they're going to look at me and they're going to say, boy, we're paying this guy a lot of money. There's some kid that just graduated college. He'll do it for half what he's, for half of what he's doing. Nowadays, you have to wonder if there's a robot that can do what you do, right? So, there's always this next thing coming. And, businesses, they're in it for a profit. There's nothing wrong with making a profit, but that profit generally comes a lot of times at, the cost of the people that work in those companies. So, I always felt that, was the case. And then once you get to the point where that's not part of your life anymore, where you don't have to do that calculus anymore, how long can I pay my bills if they laid me off tomorrow? That is, and that was just such a burden off my back. And I would say that, for most people out there that, it's well within your reach. You should be, if you have an inkling, if you're watching this at all and you're thinking to yourself, is there something out there? I could just totally assure you that there is.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess how can people find you?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, what I'm doing is I am working for one of the companies I sold it to a private equity firm. So I still work for them. Helping them manage some of their high-level relationships. But I am on the prowl, like Lenny had mentioned. I'm looking to start something else myself. So stay tuned. I'll be doing something new very soon, and I'll be glad to circle back with you guys, and tell you what it is, and how people could connect up if they're interested in participating.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. So
there you go.
So, hey, listen, Reddy, one of the things we like to do at the end of our shows, we do this big boom session, right? So the objective here is to rattle some speakers, rupture up some eardrums there. So what we're going to do is on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, in a uniform manner, we're going to say boom. So y'all guys ready?
I'm ready.
Do it. As loud as you can, man. Bring the noise. All right. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Awesome. Check this out. This was a great episode from a personal friend of mine, from a mentor of mine, who just expressed any and everything. He has so much knowledge. We're going to bring him back because there's so much more to unpack. All right. But listen, here at Find Your Freedom, we always got a gift for you, something that is easily downloadable. So just go to findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Go get it. Believe me, it's going to help you out. Also, we need you to sit here and make sure that you listen to the episodes, give an honest 5-star review so we can bring more and more episodes. Also, share this with someone, not just your friend, but your girlfriend, your brother, your sister, your mother, your aunt, your uncle, any and everybody that's in your email list. Until the next episode of Find Your Freedom, talk to you soon. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.